wasting much time, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of today's episode. Pastor Obiorome, of course, it is no news that the Constitution guarantees press freedom.
Yes.
But oftentimes we've seen journalists being haunted, especially those whose reportage the government feels that is unfavorable to their agenda.
Yeah.
And of course, of recent, we've also seen some social activists, being with the cybercrime law and all of that being hunted or arrested. But what just happened recently, well, maybe that is not why we are here. So maybe let's look at it generally without specifically, going into that particular one.
Yes. World Press Day was, celebrated yesterday, 3rd of May, worldwide. And it is usually an occasion to take a look at the degree of the freedom accorded to the press in respective countries. And back home here in Nigeria, the question that we need to probe into is the freedom of the press a myth or a reality in Nigeria as of today? We recall with nostalgia that in yesteryears, especially during the era of pre-independence Nigeria, before Nigeria gained independence, the press, which is usually regarded as the fourth frame of the republic, was very vibrant, was instrumental to the end of colonial rule in Nigeria. It was press that galvanized and made Nigerians to know that they had a right to self-rule. And at that time, there was what we can call true press freedom. But over time, we have discovered that, especially under military rule and in some cases, even civilian administrations, there have been violations, clear violations of the press freedom, even though it is encapsulated in our constitution. We thank God for the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who before he, came on board, was a known Democrat, a known professor of rule of law and democracy and the freedom of the press. In fact, he used the press, in the crusade for the end of military rule in Nigeria with other civil rights activists. But if we take a look at what is happening currently in the country, we discover that the press is not truly free. There's no freedom of the press in Nigeria, so to say, at least to a large extent. Now, we know that since the inception of this administration, the coalition of pressmen and NGOs and journalists wrote a letter to the president, which was copied to the Attorney General of the Federation and other agencies, and complained about 7 violations of the rights of pressmen in Nigeria. And apart from that, when we look at the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, that was the government under which Twitter was banned in Nigeria. And some people went to court to challenge the ban because it had to do with the violation of the right to receive or disseminate information, and which is ancillary to the issue of press freedom. And the ECOWAS court that had the matter eventually came up with a judgment that what the government of Nigeria did was a violation of the clear provisions of Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and violated Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and nullified the action of the government, stating that it could not be justified under any extant law. There's no law that justifies such ban, and that there was no court order, and equally went ahead to prohibit the country from embarking on such measure because it affected the rest of Nigerians. And then we also witnessed that sometime last year, March last year, Shego Olatunji, a journalist, was abducted by military men and taken to Abuja. Why? Because of an article he wrote. And other journalists have equally been hounded, harassed, intimidated, some even tried to court. Daniel Ojukwu is one of such victims. And what we are looking at is that, is it proper to have the press stifled, silenced? All over the civilized world, the press has freedom, because it has been said that the beginning of dictatorship is the attempt to stifle the press and opposition. And one is tempted to think and believe that the president may not know that those around him are trying to suppress the press, to stifle the opinion of the masses, to ensure that information do not get to people who are supposed to have the information. Even the Cyber Crimes Prohibition Act, sections 24 and 27, were used even against journalists. Even there was an attempt last year to amend it. That act was came into life in 2015, sometime February last year. It was an amendment, yet they still use that act to hound journalists, to suppress freedom. But one thing that is very certain, that the right of the press freedom, is guaranteed to humans, because we are humans. God has given us the mouth and means of communication and expression. And to that extent, there must be an opportunity for the press to tell Nigerians and the world what is happening in the country. I recall now that when the government of Nigeria tried to ask the ECOWAS court to dismiss the case against the country, they alleged that the founder of Twitter was the one that sponsored the EndSARS protests that caused violence across the country, and that leaders of separatist group were using Twitter. But the court said there was no evidence to support such allegations. So now it is necessary, first, for the president and those that are close to him to know that Nigeria is a country that is established on the principles of democracy, rule of law, and the freedom of the press. And that we all know the role the current president played in the crusade to end military rule. And the press was massively used to do that.
All right. Yeah, that was a very long one. So let us get your opinion.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. You see, press freedom is anchored on the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, as anchored or as stipulated, amplified in chapter 4 of our constitution. So if you don't allow somebody to freely express himself, you have gagged his opinion, you have suppressed his mind, you have suppressed his ability to tell the world what is going on, then it means that you are actually leading to what we call autocracy. You are leading to a situation that you rule as a king, as that is somebody that does not mind whatever happens to the subject. You are ruling like somebody who came into that place by inheritance. You know, when you have people who say it's my own right, so that is birthright. I was born to be a king because my father was a king and all that. When you sit in that place until you are gone by death, nobody can remove you. Although there are some situations in the Yoruba land that we used to learn in history in those days, that when a king, an Oba, committed a very grievous offense, they went with a calabash and
yes,
told him that you are, and so he had to go and commit suicide and all that. But you see, press freedom must be protected. Freedom of expression of citizens must be protected because it's a right provided for in the Constitution. And so anybody who wants to rule under democracy must have that at the back of his mind, as well as having the rule of law as a pinnacle of being the anchor of his government. This particular government that we have, as my colleague has said, came in through the use of press. In fact, if you remember in those days when they were publishing so many nasty things about the government in power, about the government of PDP then, it was the press. Yes, it was the press that was instrumental to telling the whole world, to exposing what was going on in Aso Rock and every other evil was going on in Nigeria to the world, to Nigerians, and that affected the minds of Nigerians. But when this particular government came into power, it started to gag, it started to censor, it started to suppress freedom of expression, so that if somebody writes anything in the paper, you see, it's beginning to behave like a military regime. If somebody writes something in the paper that is not favorable to the government, why should you send DSS after the person to go and pick him up? Because what he has written is not favorable to the government. It is wrong from the beginning. You cannot gag the press. You cannot suppress freedom of expression simply because you want to rule autocratically. You want to rule by fist. You want to ensure that your own opinion or whatever action you want to take must succeed. It is not by praising the freedom of the press that you do that. You can bring to bear, even using the press, whatever you are doing, whatever is going to be the reason for your action. You let the world know, let Nigerians, the citizens know that this is the reason you are doing that. It is the press you are going to use to do that. But the moment you start to censor whatever is going on in the press, we want to guard them, we want to go after pressmen, it is very, very wrong. I recall that it's not only this particular administration that is involved in the suppression of press freedom. Yeah. I remember when even OBJ was there, he closed our Guardian newspaper house and several other places. Whenever they publish something that was as if we were in a military regime, it's not right. It's wrong. Anything that the government does, in fact, press is as my colleague said, the fourth realm of and anything that you do, it is the realm that will open it up to the world. So if you are doing wrong, the press will tell the world, this man is doing wrong. If you are doing the right thing, the press will tell the world, this one. One good thing about Nigeria now is that we have both private and public broadcast institutions and even print media. And so these people, if the government in their normal propaganda will want to do things, say things that are not correct, the private institutions will come out to say, oh, this is the correct position of things, and put it to the world, put it to Nigerians, and Nigerians will be able to make up their minds. So I think it is high time now the Nigerians took to their freedom of expression, ensure that they exercise their freedom of expression, ensure that nobody stops them from doing what they are supposed to do or saying what they are supposed to say per time.
All right, but so there is this. How do we balance the concern of the government, of those who feels that the press, needs to be guided, managed in the way they report happenings in the country, especially with the issue of course, the government of the day has this coinage when you demarket, they accuse some section of the press of trying to demarket, the country, preventing foreign investors and all of that. Because that is a word that has become synonymous of recent, to opposition, to people, to press statement that government do not feel comfortable. They said those people are demarketing, the country, and they need to be guided. So how do we balance the issue of this demarketing of the country by the press, and also the issue of course the press seems to be according to the government synonymous to opposition, especially those who are saying things that the government do not like. So how the freedom of press balance these concerns of the government, because they are concerned about people demarketing the country and making their efforts futile, the efforts they are making foreign abroad and all of that futile, because they feel that some of these negative reporters prevent foreign investors from coming in.
Yes, you see, the issue of balancing reportage of journalists and the welfare of the nation, or the integrity or sovereignty of the nation, and then encouraging investors to come to invest in Nigeria. He said, if I will let you know outright that the duty of the journalist is to tell the world the truth as it is.
It is perceived as demarketing.
Now, it depends on what you mean by demarketing. If I demarket, you are giving an impression that the world will be deceived into believing that everything is well and okay in Nigeria, that investors should float into the country and they come and they are kidnapped. We are not doing any good service to the nation and to the world at large. What is important is to tell the truth as it were, so that necessary action could be taken. Let me give you an example. We know that of recent there have been killings, horrible, terrible killings of Nigerians that are so, terrifying. Now, somebody is now saying, no, the press should not talk about it, they should suppress it, nobody should talk about it. That is not the right attitude. The right attitude and that approach is, let the world know. Let the government in power know that there are security lapses, there are security breaches, that Nigerians are being killed in their hundreds, and that necessary action should be taken. And of course, that led us to discuss in recent times the issue of state police, how to stop these killings. It is when you tell this government and Nigerians the true position that people will come up with ideas on how to solve that problem. And when the problem is solved, everybody is better for it. So if you are saying that because they want to give a camouflage, a mirage of what is the true situation, that is not in the interest of anybody, both for those in government and those outside government. What Nigerians need is to tell the truth and the whole truth. And then I think one of the guidance that is it that conscious and open would only the truth can heal it. Now, the truth will always remain. You want to suppress it, it will still surface. It is important that we don't adopt the ostrich approach to problems. The ostrich will see a problem and we bury its head in the sand, believing that by the time the head is out, the problem may have disappeared, but the problem will still be there. We must state the problems, the challenges, and the prospects as are, so that necessary action could be taken. So I don't subscribe to suppressing the truth because we want to market Nigeria. If the foundation is already shaking and you are just trying to hold it, it will collapse. What we need to do is to tell Nigerians and world that necessary emergency need to be declared in areas that need to be declared, and that is why the press is there to say it the way it is. And God created humans with tongue and mouth to talk, and that is what the press is doing. And Nigerians have a right to receive information. Of course, the Freedom of Information Act, when it was promulgated and signed into law, Nigerians, if they signed and shouted hallelujah, thinking that there will be clear visible changes, but we are yet to see. So investors will still come, but the investors will come if one, corruption is tackled. Is a monster that, according to the former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, if we don't kill the monster of corruption, it will kill Nigeria. Two, the issue of insecurity, killings, need to be tackled, because if they are not tackled, it is really draining the blood of this nation. And recently I read a report that, according to United Nations, the policing in any nation should be one policeman to 450 persons. But in Nigeria, over 80% of the policemen are attached to very important persons in Nigeria, leaving Nigerians with only 20% of the police who guard the nation. And that is to say that Nigeria is under-policed. Of course, the current Inspector of Police has already ordered that the policemen are told to VIPs be withdrawn. That is yet to be complied with. But when that is complied with, there is still need to employ more police, because you discover in Nigeria that the conventional duty of the police is now assigned to some military officers. You and I know that the military is for defense of the territorial integrity of this nation. But sometimes they have been, brought in to assist in the issue of combating crime, prevention of crimes, and all that. Serious measures need to be taken. And if the government wants to guard the press so that nobody will know what's happening, to be in the dark, it is dangerous for both the masses and the government in power. And of course, any government that is not tolerant to criticism is not doing the right thing.
All right, Barrister Mike, let's take the last question for you on this issue. So some of the challenges that the press, especially with the government in power, what will you suggest, or what will you advise, the press to do in Nigeria? Continue to, have a level playing ground, to continue to do their job without intimidation and all of that, because we will still find that, of course, the press in Nigeria, they still report with a little bit of fear because, of the government in power. Sometimes they have to suppress the truth, especially government and powerful individuals also. So what would your suggestion? Because we have seen all over the world, the practices all over there. We see a vibrant press that even when they interview the president, they are free to ask any manner of question. But here we see that some VIP, even before an interview is scheduled, they give them some questions. Yes. They have to ask,
and the no-go areas,
and tell them no-go areas.
Yes, they must not venture into.
Sure, I know that there's no place in the world that you don't have some, even the pressmen themselves, who are not also doing the right thing. Some of the pressmen would deliberately report falsehood so as to injure the government in power, or to injure a particular section or sector or individual. Those kind of pressmen, in fact, like Idi Amin would say that there is freedom of press, but there is no freedom. There's freedom of speech, but there's no freedom after speech. So once you say something that is injurious to somebody that is not true, you are liable in court to whatever action the person or the organization will take against you. That is not about the small percentage of pressmen who are involved in fabricating falsehood and feeding it to the world or to the citizenship. That is it.
And that should lie action in civil, not arresting with security agencies.
Very well in civil. Then the government itself, we know there is no part of the world. If you watch CNN, even before Trump came in, you could have seen that CNN was against the government. It was against Trump's administration at that time, and it's still against Trump's administration. They would, a proper press should be able to analyze things properly, not in favor of a particular sitting government. You should be able to analyze it and tell the world, this is exactly what the ground.
Yes.
Not what the government is telling you is on ground. This is exactly what, and that is the beauty of press freedom, as you see in the civilized world. So in Nigeria here, we should allow the press to be free to express its opinions about issues, about what happened. Like my colleague has said, how can you expect the press to write that Nigeria is well secured when you cannot travel? Okay, you go to Plateau State. We heard what happened last month. Just running in the entire, and the governor of the state came out to state that there are some local governments that are under bandits. I sympathize with the governor when he was talking. There are some some villages that are under bandits. The bandits pay, the citizens living there pay taxes to the bandits. That means that those people have their own government. And so if you are inviting investors and you don't allow the press to let the world know that this is exactly what is happening, and you invite an investor into that terrain and the man just wandered into the place without having knowledge, because information is very important. Without having the information that this place is dangerous, he veers into that place, and that will be the end of the man if he's not able to play ball and get. And in fact, even sometimes when they kidnap somebody, they will pay. Some people will pay the ransom, and then the person will still be killed. That is a level of insecurity that we have, and this should be it should be allowed to be made known to the international community, so that even if the government, there are so many nations of the world that do not rely on their strength to be able to tackle insecurity. You need the assistance of some other external forces to be able to do that. And I believe that if Nigeria cannot tackle, as it were, we have seen it with our eyes, that we cannot tackle this, then why don't bring in some foreign assistance to assist in this area, to ensure that, I keep saying that with technology that we have in Nigeria today, we can massively clear off all this insecurity. But the truth of the matter is that it is not technology that is going to arrest the bandit. It is not security that will harm the people. That will rescue kidnap citizens. It is only the people with gun, the security forces will go in there and release them.
Yes, and just in addition, the good news for the press is that presently there is AI assisted, press information dissemination and so on, that AI could be used to, further the frontier to the borders that those in power may have restricted. But Nigeria cannot do without press freedom. And we sympathize with those that have been victims of brutality in the hands of government in power. The likes of Zik, Nnamdi Azikiwe, who used the press with the orders at that time to tell the world that Nigeria was ripe for self-governance, using the press. He will be crying his grave if he sees what is happening to journalists today.